Hello everyone. This is so good to be on this platform again. I'm just waiting for a few seconds to some more of you to join, and I will invite our fabulous, amazing stream. Just in a second, he's going to join. Accepting him, and here you go. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm just eating my breakfast.
Wonderful. Enjoy it. Healthy, I
How are
can see
you?
breakfast.
Happy Wednesday, maybe. I don't know. Anything this healthy that tastes this good that has to be artificial. So maybe not.
Well,
Well, who knows? We'll see.
depends,
We'll see.
but anyway, it's so great to see
Indeed.
you here in
Likewise.
the
Thanks for having me.
conversations with Olga. So the way we're going to do it being that we have about 1 hour. I would love to talk to you for hours like we do when we meet, but I'll try to condense it as much as possible. I will say a few words about conversations with Olga. I will do a very short intro for you, and then we just take over like we always do. And super excited.
Sounds great. And Mark promised me he'd come in, so we'll see when he does.
Well, let's see. So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me in Asia. Thank you for joining me in America. And thank you for joining me in Europe as well. That's why I always try to find a time that all our multinational community can join me. Conversations with Olga is an IGTV YouTube series that I started about 3 years ago during the circuit breaker, during the COVID, and it's hard to believe that it's already been 3 years, with the goal to introducing friends and personalities I've met through my career and in my lifetime to the multicultural Singaporean and global community through a platform that is accessible and interesting. These conversations run from the gamut of from intellectual cultural exchanges to more personal stories about people how they fulfill their dreams. My main mission and hope for this series is to inspire and cultivate a more diverse and inclusive community that can learn from one another. It is an honor today for me to have an amazing person for my episode number 47, Bing Chen, the CEO and co-founder of Gold House. Bing, I will say just as I said a few words about you, and then I'll give you the room to elaborate as much as you like. Bing and I were introduced by my son, Mark, and it's so sweet of you to mention that Mark is your brother. I definitely can see the similarities, for sure. Um, Bing is one of the most established community builders and for Asian artists and cultural ecosystems. He is the CEO and co-founder of AU Holdings and Gold House, and regularly stages incredible events, just like recent Gold Gala, and we of course talk about it in a little while. Today we talk about your journey as a third culture kid, what drives you, how you build a massive and comprehensive support system for multicultural leaders, focusing on unity and investments, and so much more. So, welcome to Conversations with Olga Bing.
Thank you for having me,
And
Olga.
what I actually want to ask you, if you're given 50 seconds in the elevator to describe yourself, what would you say? How would you explain who you are? 15 seconds. I'm starting to count.
I'm Bing. I love everything and almost everyone. I guess that's it.
Okay. Well, that's a perfect teaser, of course, what we are talking about, because you do love so many people and you are being, and you are absolutely extraordinary. So, but let's start um, about a little bit, to talk a little bit about your past and how you started it all. You have shared with me a little bit about your beginnings and when we saw each other in New York, and you were born in Knoxville, Tennessee, and grew up as a third culture kid across North America and Asia. For people who don't know perhaps or not familiar who the third culture kids are. These are the kids raised in culture other than their parents or the culture of their country of nationality. So can you share, please, with us a little bit what it was like for you?
Yeah, it was amazing, to be honest. I think it's the best thing my parents ever did. And there are certain professors at the Wharton School who have corroborated that being a third culture kid is the only single determinant, or the most pronounced single determinant, I should say, at a developmental cycle to determine whether an adult becomes versatile and creative. So it's a really good privilege, I think. And there's so many of us. We're the fifth largest nation in the world, effectively, if you counted us.
Yeah.
Roughly 230 billion, or excuse me, 230 million of us. But Tennessee was amazing. I often say I got my heart from Tennessee, my eyes from Shanghai, and my taste from California. And so within Knoxville, which is where Dolly Parton is from, I feel like everyone was just incredibly kind. It's where I learned that why you should support your neighbor just because they're your neighbor, why you should find ways that you're more similar than you are different. Shanghai was a very sobering experience very early on. It was just very different, and this was sort of the second big wave of Western expats. So it was at once. I wouldn't say it was lonely, but it was jarringly different. But there was immense commonality because we were
Yeah.
all young in our formative years and experiencing it together, and just so many things. I remember my first day of fourth grade. There was a classmate who had come in because her uncle's shop in the Gaza Strip had gotten bombed. And this is pre current Gaza conflict. This is pre 9/11 in the United States. This is before a lot of sort of modern notions of terrorism were sort of massively aware, partly, of course, accelerated by tech. And I just remember that moment opening all of our eyes at 10 years old dramatically and very, very quickly. And so it's a great privilege to be able to grow up in some cases, not all, very quickly. And then yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but my taste comes from California, so I don't know. I'm a little bit of an aesthete,
Okay. Well,
without being exclusionary, I suppose. So yeah, so that's how it was.
Revan, you rightly mentioned that, of course, there are huge differences, but huge similarities between Eastern and Western culture, and you obviously embraced it. And have you experienced any conflicts while you were growing up that you were a little bit confused? And what are the key values actually that resonated uh, with you from both cultures?
I think they're likely. How do you say? There are always conflicts when there's a secondary party that's introduced, and so I don't think I faced that many conflicts in Tennessee because it was my baseline. I was also too young, candidly, to probably sort of know. But in Shanghai, I remember I was particularly struck by how rude everyone was. Just because it's partly metropolitan sort of
Yeah.
culture. I remember a moment that forever sticks out to me was my mother was biking on the road, and my mother is extremely responsible. Also, of course, Chinese. And there was a taxi cab that had run a red light because, of course, that's just commonplace there. And it had hit her, and she and her bike flew up 10 feet in the air. And she's forever been sort of impacted by this on the right side of her body, can't sit in certain ways and so forth. And the person, of course, lied that my mother had run the red light, and that the taxi driver was not the one. My mother didn't speak Shanghainese, so she couldn't say anything, and there's no retribution. And this is partly sort of city life. I think you find a version of this in New York City and so
Yeah.
forth. But I remember being particularly struck by this, and now in my work life, how do you actually think about reshaping behaviors in a positive, sustainable way, and knowing that not all economic structures actually match that. So I think that is one that may not be the holistic perspective, but is certainly the most pronounced perspective that I
Yeah.
think about.
That
I also
affected you.
yeah, I also do think about the commonality too. So it was we went to American school, aka international school. Everyone came from a different country, a different continent, almost every continent. And I remember us just sort of every night, Friday night playing different games. And I think forging that commonality despite geographic, biological, and so forth disparities was really really enlightening and inspiring to me. And then I remember when I moved back to the States because my father had contracted cancer to a point and metastasized where we needed a U.S. doctor. I remember feeling how shallow everyone was. We spent high school in the OC, as it were, which became popular because it had a TV show about a bunch of precocious in the wrong way, I'll say, kids.
Yes.
I just remember wondering how people could be so focused on vanity when there are just so many more essential existential things,
Yeah.
and found it profoundly jarring. One of my high school classmates, somewhat facetiously, maybe somewhat seriously, had his high school yearbook quote was "Get rich or die trying," or "Get popular or die trying," which was an homage, of course, to 50 Cent's album "Get Rich or Die Trying." And I don't
And
know.
we will talk a little bit about this
Yeah,
kind of stipulate a little bit later.
yeah, but yeah, that's all it was. So those are some pronounced sort of experiences where there are definitely disparities.
But thank you for sharing, and it's touching, and it's definitely the character building life. It's a journey. So thank you really very much for sharing. I want to ask you. Your bio also has an interesting line about $11.99 buffets. What is it all about? What does it mean,
Uh,
actually?
so truly, my favorite cuisine in the world is a buffet. Just because I think it matches my personality. I like a lot,
Oh,
constantly. And
okay.
so buffets just, you can have fried chicken, you can have tacos, you can have carrot cake, and
Okay.
so it's just really lovely. Yeah, and so that's typically how much a buffet would cost in Tennessee. It's in my bio because it's true, and it's in my bio because I just think life is fun and should be fun, and I feel like most bios are over serious and boring, and so that's why
Okay,
it's
so
in there.
next time, Bing, we will go for lunch in New York. We are not going for the sit down and plated lunch or dinner,
Yeah.
okay? I'll
No
make
more
sure
pressure,
that we'll
dude.
go out for the buffet.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, wonderful. I'll move into continuing with your story, actually. You're an investor, and being an investor at the scale that you are, isn't it something that happens overnight? What was the turning point in your life that alerted you to this interest of yours?
Oh gosh, I
Was it the
really should.
childhood
Yeah,
drive? Was it circumstances, or was it
I'll give you the honest
epiphany?
answer. Yeah, I'll give you the honest answer. I think a couple fold. I think one is I've traditionally been an operator, and I think the natural evolution of a lot of operators, particularly who are within tech or adjacent to tech at the very least, is to become an investor at some point because you know what you're looking for and you know how to build. And so that is indeed what happened within Gold House. We're lucky to have two funds. One is a venture fund, as you know. The other is a
Yeah.
content fund. So software and then media companies.
Yes.
Um, so it was just, I think, a natural evolution of things. I think the second thing is, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I think honesty is the only policy. I'm actually not the best investor, which is why I'm lucky to have good, real investors with real track records on our team who actually run the fund. The reason why is because I'm brutally optimistic and resilient, which in this case means I can make anything happen and anything work. And that doesn't come from hubris. It really just comes from a relentlessness. I don't stop until I get things done. And so whenever I meet a portfolio company, whether again they're in media space or in the venture space, I know exactly how to make it work. It may not IPO, but I know how to get it to acquisition.
Yeah.
And that just is the worst attribute of an investor. An investor's job is to be very, very crass, to say no. And I am someone who is constantly saying yes. And so,
Well,
so luckily, we have a full investment team that is extremely seasoned, extremely
yes.
successful. And then my job is honestly more on the operations side. So once we actually invest, how do we ensure that we light this up?
Got it. Got it. Well, thank you. And I know exactly what you're talking about when you say that you have difficulty saying no. I'm a little bit like that too, or a lot like that too. So is Mark, by the way.
Yeah, this.
Going back, yes, very difficult to say no. Well, that's the character, I think. You graduated from University of Pennsylvania with the degree in creative writing. They're not that creative writing is not extremely popular
Useful.
medium these days,
Yeah.
but it's not enough, and it's not enough people study it so formally, especially these days, sadly. But I'm sure it's probably affected a lot of what you do today, especially in the realm of content creation. If I'm Correct, and which you will go in, which we'll talk about a little bit in a while. Can you share with us a few key tips, perhaps, that what is your writing style and whether you use your writing abilities these days uh, a lot, or a bit, or not at all?
Yeah, my writing style is highly lyrical. It's almost very close, if not exactly like spoken word, but in prose
Oh,
form.
love it.
So there's a lot of allegories, a lot of rhymes, a lot of alliterations, and so forth. A lot of sort of hearkenings, a lot of allegory to current and past sort of zeitgeist. Do I use it often? Constantly. I would say most frequently I
Wonderful.
use it in social media. So I'm not shy to say things that might sound annoying or off kilter because it's how I feel. And I also candidly don't care what people think. Because if they care in weird ways, then they're probably not my people. The second is through sort of like even corporate communication. I'm not bashful about saying certain things, whether they are to speak up for the truth or to compliment someone because they did an incredible job. And
Love
then
it.
third is, yeah, and then a third, of course, is in my novel, which is more traditional. So my novel is actually deceptively 9 novels, and then it's also a long spoken word poem. So it's actually not really a novel. It's more, if anything, like a play. But yeah, those would be the three areas. My mother similarly thought that major was useless, which is why I didn't tell her I did it until the day of graduation. But it was the best
But
thing I think I could have done. Yeah.
that's great. You see, it's just it's so and look at you,
Oh,
and then that's all brings me to another part of your career. Probably it's all probably somehow originated and developed from your ability to communicate and ability to write. And it's a career as a YouTube's global head of creator development and management. This is incredible title, and let's talk a little bit about the spectrum of roles you've taken in general in your career. Um, in the role of global head of creative development and management, in this, what set the foundation for what is now actually the multi-billion dollar creator and influence ecosystem that supports 300 million creators worldwide? Uh, and YouTube is in a league of its own, and it's of course it has so much power if harnessed it right, correct? So, but it's one of the most difficult social media platforms, I think, to perfect. How did you help build the platform to be what it is now?
yeah, I think being able to go to YouTube was part of a executive management program at Google, where they basically tried to build future leaders faster. And I was very lucky to be the only person from UPenn to be admitted in and accept. And I think it was I really owe it to my academic advisor Justin Mazer, who promised me that your major had no correlation to what you did after, which is why I had so much conviction to do creative writing. But 20% of me still didn't believe him. But he had reinforced that you should basically hone how you think,
Yeah,
and that sort of all things will follow. And he was right. And so, luckily I think about things in abstraction and then try to make them cogent and useful for the world, which I would argue is
yeah,
exactly the point of poetry and literature and so forth. Yeah, at YouTube, I was honestly, it came from immense deductive passion, but it also came from immense luck and timing. I think since I was a boy, my dream was to be the new Walt Disney. It still is. I would
you're
argue in many ways that
still a little boy, and you still can achieve that dream. So
yeah, that's right. Thank you, Mom. Yeah, so I was lucky to intern at Disney multiple times in undergraduate school, and it really taught me the value of creative processes and rigidity. But I was also really excited by the opportunity to not only democratize the distribution of content and creators, but
yeah,
really the creation of them. Said another way, how can anyone be sort of their own micro Walt Disney or Beyonce and so
yes,
forth? And so I ended up being the first creator marketing manager at YouTube Worldwide. I remember a great privilege was there were really only three other leads focusing on it at the time. There were my boss, Chris Hamilton, who is incredible, probably the best boss I've ever had to this day. There was Margaret Healy, who managed the top 100 creators. And then there was Shanaz Zach, who was the product manager. And I remember when I arrived, Shanaz said, "We've been waiting for you," because apparently creators or they were called partners at the time, had not been prioritized. And so they threw a bunch of ideas at me, and we basically worked together to hone them into 10 different ideas that I called the Walt Disney Company in 2010. Chen. In that deck were a globalized partner program, is a rewards program anchored in something called a gold play button, a YouTube studio, an incubator, a creator hub, as we would call it, which is now youtube.com/creators, which is one of my children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And very proudly, partly because of vision, partly because of execution, partly because of timing, we effectively got everything in that list done within 2 years. Not with a much broader team.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's much larger now. But just to
Incredible.
yeah, to distill the goals, the creator economy, which my friend Annie Baxter, our PR lead, coined in 2011, after we had brought in multiple nine figures of revenue, she said, "We're not taken seriously internally and externally. We need people not to think about this as a program, but instead as a true new economy. What if we called it creator economy?" And this is right after I had sort of popularized the term creator. The reason for that was partner was just very old, and we were a bunch of young people who thought that was corny. And so I remember a bunch of our creators on our platform, like John and Hank Green, like Shay Carl, like Ryan Higa, they had individually called themselves creators, even though no one in the industry had. And I like this additionally because this is now the creative writing side. Creator, of course, starts with C. We would have this sort of business line that creators are their own C-suites.
Yeah,
You are the CEO, the CMO, the COO, the CFO, et cetera. And it's true, you have
exactly.
to do it all. Yeah,
Yes,
and so it
exactly.
sort of nicely fit there too. So that's how the term creator economy was born about 14 years ago or 13 years ago. Anyway, so just to fast forward, the creator economy is codified by sort of three different elements. One is fame, second is fortune, and third is creativity. So on the
In
fame side,
disorder.
we eventually launched the gold plate button. It was 24 karat gold plated in the beginning days. My buddies Gavin Young and Grant LaFontaine, who has since co-founded a platform called Whatnot, created it as well. We launched the guiding algorithm of the platform, Watch Time. On the revenue side, I would say the two proudest achievements were definitely the globalization of the YouTube Partner Program that I co-led. I would say I really project managed at the end to sort of 43 countries before I left. It's now, I think, in 73. And then also several of our friends at what internally is called the Zoo standardized something that the world would now know as influencer marketing. So we helped them sort of engineer a lot of that.
Unbelievable.
That was really led by, yeah, by people like Megan Jordan, who I think is still there. Another person named Stephanie Wendelin, who's incredible, all that. So a lot of great people leading a lot of great stuff. And then third is creativity. So we wanted to make sure this was the newest form of creativity for folks.
Yes.
So there's a lot of great product management teams from Jason Taj, George Simshowitz, Shivaraj Raman, who just created new tools for creators to democratize their creation of their own content, whether it's licensed music for their own videos or otherwise. On our end, myself, someone named Austin Lau, and then Heather Rivera created something called Next Up. It is still the longest running accelerator and content investment vehicle at YouTube worldwide. We created it in 2010. It launched in 2011 and it still exists to this day. It's on youtube.com/creators. So very proud of that. It's launched the careers of now hundreds of different creators, all the way to other tools. So if you go to youtube.com/creators, you'll see a litany of different sort of assets to help you up level your skills, like the YouTube Academy, which we helped launch. I forgot his name, but he oversaw third-party verification. And then there's an audience development team led by V Papas, who became CEO of TikTok.
Yeah,
But yeah, a bunch of
that's
amazing people. Yeah, and the YouTube
incredible.
Mafia is strong. Yeah.
You know, this well, I feel even more privileged to remind everybody that conversations with Olga are all downloaded on the YouTube. So
Oh
feel free
yeah.
to go on it. And then, yes, and now I feel even, seriously, I feel even, so much more important to be on the YouTube after listening
Delivering the
about what
best.
you've been doing. Yes, and you rightly said that, almost everyone is a content creator these days. And
For better or
virality is
worse.
temporary, but sustaining, right? But sustaining good content over time is tough.
Yes.
What sets someone apart, and how does anyone make it to the top and stays on top? Your
Yeah.
take.
We we actually studied this. So there's someone named Kevin Alaka. Well, the story is that Olivia Ma and Rami Raghavan, who oversaw news and politics at YouTube, had the great foresight of realizing that we should be honing YouTube trends more rigidly. And so they hired a contractor at the time named Kevin Alaka, who's just really lovely, became the first YouTube trends manager. I think he's still there, and I think he's definitely full-time now, and the global head of trends. So he actually studied this over many years, and he actually ascertained that the determinants of a successful creator, particularly when it comes to virality, are the following. Number one is you have to have really dense and consistent access to a meaningful niche. So
Yeah.
typically mass sort of creators don't last. If you're just a video blogger, you typically don't, your half-life is a lot shorter.
Yes.
If you're a beauty guru though, where you target beauticians or beauty or lifestyle or fashion categories, or if you're a gamer and you touch gaming, you typically have a longer livelihood. So niche is number one. The second is elevation by association. So the fastest and most sustainable way to grow and engage audiences through cross promotion, whether it's you collaborate on a video or you sort of tag someone, etc. But collaboration continues to be the hallmark of the creator
Yeah.
economy, and once again, the fastest way. The third is diversification of revenue. The majority of creators do not make their revenue, or well, the majority of successful creators, excuse me, do not make the majority of their revenue on one platform ever. It's not dissimilar from how traditional franchises work.
Yeah.
For instance, if you ask any author, they make really nothing on their book,
Yeah.
but the book becomes a platform to unlock speaking opportunities, events, and so forth. If you ask Marvel how much money they make on their films, now they do make a lot of money on their films, but
Yeah.
a majority of that monetization from those franchises doesn't come from the film itself. It comes from toys, the collateral theme park impact in a positive way, so forth and so on. And so once again, typically the most successful creators are not only well monetarily diversified, but they make the majority of their income away from their anchor
Yeah.
platform because of what it enables. The fourth item that is less obvious and maybe less popular is utility. So a lot of people, I think, have a perception that you have to be some crazy creator doing something intrinsically what the internet would call viral to sort of pop off. And the reality is the creators that have the most consistent largest viewers or viewership are utilities. So they are how to apply makeup, how to tie a tie. They're actually useful content. Period. So that's that. And then the final piece, of course, which luckily YouTube and other great platforms have sort of dismantled in a good way, is accessibility.
Yeah.
So are you accessible not just on multiple devices, but in multiple languages?
Yeah.
Even if you're accessible in multiple languages, have you localized in a way that you really are not just translating but localizing? Because as we all know, culture sort of interprets things differently, or different cultures interpret things differently. So anyway, those are a couple of the sort of prime tips.
Thank you. And super useful. So everybody, check your content and what you're doing on the social media. And of course, all of us, and especially the high profile influencers, if you want to call them, live in a public view through the content that we all create. And a lot of times it affects our privacy and mental health as well. How do you personally relate to social media in general, as you as a big?
Oh, ugh. To be honest, I use it more transactionally. So I use it more as an additional messaging system,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of networking system. So Instagram is actually more work for me than anything else. In terms of posting, I really hate posting. I always feel so corny
Yeah.
about it, but I only
Join
do
the
it.
club.
Yeah, it's so
It's
corny.
a,
But yeah, I have
yeah.
to do it for personal memories. So
Yeah.
so I just want to remember the things that I'm able to be lucky to do. And then the other half is I feel guilty because if I don't post, then the partners that we work with will think I'm ashamed of them, and I don't want them to think that. And so it's both guilt and nostalgia, which I don't
Yeah.
know, may or may not, depending on who you ask, be the same emotion. But yeah, but I don't know.
I
I don't love
totally,
it.
I totally am with you. The only way how I can justify to myself to post and especially on Instagram is to write. So I write captions and something just completely random or something that I feel, something that gravitates to me. So at least I'm true to myself and I'm authentic. If I would have not done that, it would be morally unacceptable for me, honestly, to just to show pretty photos and just to say what I'm wearing. So I'm subconsciously I'm quite honest with myself, at least when I post, so I can relate to what you're saying.
I hear that.
We will move right now into your yet other hat, advertising. You are on the board of director and advisor to several leading digital media companies, and you have worked in advertising. Advertising has been one of the most interesting industries that combine creativity and commercial elements, of course, from the days of ad men in US in 1960s, and I still hooked on Mad Men, and my son Mark is also coming from gravitated into the film industry from the advertising. And I always personally admired brands that focus on storytelling, and I've been talking about it through other activations that I personally do. But the films like pop up about Christian Dior and Ralph Lauren and Gucci lately and Miu Miu, for example, have crept into the film industry to make beautiful short stories and basically to soft advert their products. What are your thoughts on advertising these days in the modern world?
I mean, advertising is so important. We see more ads than we do sort of traditional linear content, whether it's
Yeah.
series or films. More time, maybe not more time spent. So it's incredibly important. Um, uh, I also just personally love ads. I feel like half of the Twitter thread and Instagram feeds I follow are just brands, just because I like to see what they make. So that's my sort of heuristic opinion. In terms of where the advertising industry is now, to be honest, I haven't given enough thought to say intelligently, other than one, I think every agency in particular needs to move towards more utility-based defendable services. I don't actually believe that creativity alone is enough of a defendable asset to justify a full business. So can you, for instance, produce creative faster because of some Gen AI tool than any other agency? That starts to become a defendable asset. So I think that's number one, that they need to engage a little more aggressively. I think secondly is storytelling is really not enough either. We all know, a la the Pareto principle, a la a creator, targeting a niche consistently, that a medium or even small or sometimes large engaged community is the most important set of consumers, because they're repeatable purchasers, or you can up and cross sell them more easily. So how do you super serve these people beyond just storytelling, I think, is also really, really important. You do see this in some instances where Vogue, Saks, and others, I don't know why these are all suddenly feeling like retail fashion outlets, but they all sort of have their own clubs, where you sort of pay some exorbitant amount and you get XYZ benefits. I do think that's interesting, and I think more brands should be engaging in that way. Um, yeah, that's how I feel about advertising.
So it's kind of the sense of belonging to certain group of people for certain reason, with certain storytelling and certain, I don't know, coexistence with the like-minded people. This is what you think that the consideration should be for the brand building or brand story?
Yes, I wish I had a third for you, but there was a day in the 2010s when we moved from social networking to passion networks. So this is the rise of
Mhm.
Discord, Pinterest, and so forth, from the Facebooks, the Snaps. The Snaps is still doing well, et cetera, of the world. Instagram, I'd argue, is a passion-based platform, though it now has become a communication platform. I don't know where we are right now. My suspicion is we're in utility phase now, so everything needs to be messaging or deal with wills and death and so forth. But I don't have any data to indicate that that is true. But that's what my instinct says. Yeah,
Okay, well, that's That's very,
or
very
not.
useful. Yes, and I'm, quite. I shouldn't say surprised, but it's interesting what you said, that the storytelling is not enough, and that belonging or building the communities around certain brand, perhaps the way to go, or uh, incorporate, I should say. That's. Thank you for sharing it. This
Yeah,
thought. It's really very interesting.
I mean, maybe we can like go to Mark's new life too, of or current life, I shouldn't say new. Filmmaking. Half of a film's budget is marketing.
Yeah,
Period. So the Marvel films, they say, are $250 million for development and production, but what they
yeah,
always omit in those reports is the
yes,
marketing budget is also 250
yes.
million.
That's right.
And yeah, marketing is definitely half the battle. And so I think that's partly why I say storytelling is not enough, because just because you produce it doesn't mean it'll be seen in the right way. And even if it's seen in the right way, it doesn't mean it's engaged with in the right way,
Yes,
which is the other part.
yes,
You can't put
very
something
true.
on a billboard, yeah, and pray that people look at it, you know, and feel it and understand it, and then you know, evangelize it and so forth. And so I think that's where the community galvanization piece becomes extremely important.
That's great. Fantastic tips. Thank you so much. It's really, really definitely food for thought. And now I would like to move to the most incredible golden activity of your life, the Gold House. And this is I want to talk as much as we can, as much as we have time about it, and how this most extraordinary initiative you have co-founded now become bigger than life in a way. So one of the biggest roles now is where you build a cultural ecosystem that aims to unite, invest, and champion Asia Pacific creators and communities. In one of your taglines, which I absolutely loved, read, "We are building our own houses. We are not waiting for someone else's." For a lot of us who moved countries and cultures, finding a way to integrate into the parent nation is really, really tough. It's definitely not easy. There's something that we thankfully see a lot now in Hollywood, where you have many Asian actors and filmmakers in general. Can you share a little bit what inspired you to start on this incredible and very just amazing community?
I'm so flattered. I think it was two things. One is I do really want to build sort of this new existential Walt Disney company, which is a combination of it's sort of a two by two, but it's a combination of stories and systems that produce more positive sort of lives and outcomes.
Yeah.
Some of them are proprietary and owned, some of them are enabled within the market, and that is effectively what we have built. We still need to do a little bit more on the scale platform side, but that is coming. One. On the inductive side, I never honestly expected to do anything that started this Asian. Just because I don't like to subscribe to things that one does not control in their lives. I do think that self-determination is one of the most important skills, assets, imperatives of our species. And I also don't believe in building for one community. I think it's incredibly myopic, backwards, etc. Plus, especially coming from YouTube, where literally our premise was we're here for
Yeah.
everyone. It just feels very discordant. And so the reason we started out with this was not just because I'm of Asian descent, obviously, but there was just this period where there was a lot of xenophobia that was being pushed against us from Trump at the time, who was the president of the United States at the time. But then there are also some positive opportunities, like a film called Crazy Rich Asians, which was not only the first film led by an Asian cast from a major studio in 2.5 decades, but is also just an excellent rom-com, probably more importantly. And so it came sort of from both of those places. My style of building is always federative, which is to say, I'm sort of always the 22-year-old at YouTube begging for a budget for something called creators from people who don't believe me. And so, and I don't take this as like a traumatic thing. I actually take this as a gift, because what that means at a practical level is I am able to build with other people in a really collaborative, holistic way where they're invested, and then I now have more assets. So the way we did that with YouTube was, or with, excuse me, Gold House was Kevin Lin, who's also the founder of Twitch, also chairman of our board and primary co-founder of Gold House, Jeremy Tran, and I, a bunch of others. We met with 500 top leaders over the course of 9 months and asked them all if they were to build this, what would they do? So it was basically our own research group. And this was really important to me because I'm not the type of person who trusts research entirely, just because so much is lost. And also, I know a lot of these people conducting it, sure, they're experts, but they also aren't necessarily functional operators, so they don't actually know how to translate a lot of the knowledge. And there's a lot that can be lost there. And so,
Yeah, and also bias, I'm sure, is
and
present as
bias.
well, no matter what. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so, yeah, and honestly, maybe I'm a little bit of a control freak too, so I just wanted to hear it for myself. And so, we met with
It's
500
good.
leaders.
Me too.
Yeah,
I know how it
exactly,
works.
exactly. But yeah, and we did all that, and everyone said by no coincidence the exact same 3 to 4 things that we should focus on, and once again, by no coincidence, those are our 3 to 4 pillars. So that was one side. The other side for comprehension, because I'm also a completionist, is we did also commission a study, and that study, of course, corroborated the exact same 3 to 4 things that we had had already verified for ourselves. So that's how we were sort of born about now 6 years ago. We launched 5 years ago because again we spent roughly 9 months sort of researching this.
Okay.
But yeah,
That's incredible, and this is just, and it's growing from the big to the bigger and just more uh, just famous, and then just gratifying for so many people who are talking about it, joining and knowing about it more and more. So including myself, and that brings me to the very more recent, extremely glamorous event you have staged recently in LA, the Gold Gala. It is a gold house, and Gold Gala can become basically a beacon of the Asian Pacific community. And this year, from what I've seen, from what I've read, from what I've been told, from what was shared with me by so many people, the gala was indeed spectacular. I'd read somewhere, I believe maybe it was even CNN, that said that it was definitely the Met Gala of Asian cultural communities, which is incredible. And you had like incredible guests, including, I will read some of them so I don't forget. But Malakshmi, since Erivo, Lucy Liu, Highway Chairman Bank C. Oak, Renee Rapp, Halsey, W. Kamau Bell, and Yoon Yo Jong. These are some of the names from what I've seen and from what I've seen in the social media as well. These events are absolutely huge in terms of the names that were presented at the gala and whom you invited. What was the process like?
oh
How
gosh,
did
where
it
to be?
work?
Yeah, no, I thank you for the compliment. Yes, it was CNN and Vogue. So this is the Asia Pacific Met Gala, which we're very flattered by. Where do I begin? I'll give you principles. So humans think in superlatives. We don't think about what is the third best thing or what we did in August. We think about what was the best thing of the year. We think about what is the best restaurant in a city. And so these climactic moments that are usually anchored in events are not just climaxes, but also reset buttons for the communities and the industries that they occupy. So to analogize this to the entertainment world, the Oscars quite literally reset the film industry. Studios, excuse me, streaming platforms will shift launch dates or debut dates specifically to ensure Oscar eligibility or festival eligibility. Same thing with the Grammys, same thing with Emmys. So we look at Gold Gala and the A100 list, which is basically its virtual analog. So it celebrates the A100 list in person as sort of a reset and a climactic button for our community. The second, in terms of its sort of experiential construction. So the Met Gala is depending on how you slice it, the second most watched event in North America. The first, of course, is the Super Bowl, which means it's profoundly important from a cultural lens. What people see, especially at this level, is indeed what they remember for at least several months, if not the entire year. And the Met Gala has a particular sort of construction that makes it the Met Gala. So I'll share a couple of learnings that we interpreted and, like good artists, adapted.
Yeah.
One is it is anchored in high fashion, almost superlative fashion. And so we require that everyone wears a gold designer because it is the Gold Gala. You will often see that many people compare the fashion at Gold Gala to the Met Gala, if not better, because it does have that heritage underpinning. The second is sort of the grandiosity of entrances. So we have this sweeping gold stairwell that people sort of ascend up to sort of the Gold Gala marquee. Every major press outlet is there: Vanity Fair, Vogue, CNN, People, Us, E, the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline, Billboard, Adweek, etc. So that's that. The third, of course, is the immense A-listers across industries. We think that cross-industry prowess is profoundly important. So as you just articulated, everyone from arguably the godfather of K-pop, Bong Seok, to
Yeah.
legendary Lucy Liu, the first Asian woman to headline in a film, a major studio film, first Asian woman to headline SNL, etc. Michelle Yeoh, of course, was there as part of the most winning film of all time, Everything Everywhere All at Once, all the way to the CEO of Tinder, all the way to the head of Amazon Prime, all the way to the CCO of Netflix. So it's a really broad, beautiful base. And then there's a bunch of other constructions too. But I think the reason people The biggest compliment that I've received that I've tried to internalize is Gold Gala is really a feeling. The reason even those who get invited to other galas, they say it's their favorite is one, not just the luxuriousness, and there's no question about that. It's a Michelin meal, for instance. And I'll go into that in detail if you'd like. Apart from having other sort of accoutrement, it's immense pronunciation and inclusion of our heritage. I think resonates a lot with people.
Yeah.
So that heritage is not just the obvious stuff of being from one region or one country or one generation, but we had Hello Kitty there, who is really a
Yes.
whimsical, really proud
Yes, it
point for
was
Japan.
it's a total highlight. I saw
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
as Hello
amazing.
Kitty. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
most of us grew up with her and we've never met her, and there
I
she is.
know. It was so
Um,
charming and unexpected. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
fabulous.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nice levity. But that, of course, complements, let's say, the Michelin meal that Padma Lakshmi co-created with Unapologetic Foods
Yeah,
restaurant Sema. Chef Vijay Kumar is the only Indian restaurant in the country in the United States with a Michelin star. And so there's immense gravity there. And that menu is not just a Michelin level meal with open table, thanks to them, they made it possible. But it was also deeply personal. So even the curry leaves on the halaba were from Padma's father's farm. So you just have this interesting blend of heritage with gravity and levity that I think is quite rare for people. And I think that inspires a lot of the sort of heuristic or the feeling that Maya Angelou would be proud of that one experiences on site. We are, and I think humans in general are unfortunately just often scarcity minded and very zero sum and not giving because either we're selfish and afraid of our power being taken, or we're just busy and don't have the time and neglect others. And I think in contrast, Gold Gala is about openness.
yeah,
Everyone who's invited is not just at the apex of their industry, but the apex of many people's hearts. And so they're incredibly giving, they're incredibly open. You see people doing multiple business deals. It is not abnormal it's actually quite common for people to have at least a dozen professional follow-ups after or personal follow-ups after. And this is just a gala,
amazing.
you know. And so, yeah, we're really, really proud of it. It's in its
Yeah,
third year, multi-million dollar enterprise. And there are enormous ambitions for it moving forward beyond just an event. Um, uh, the biggest thing that I can share for next year, and Bangsi Yuk and Karan Johar from India, arguably the Spielberg of India, were harbingers of this. But next year it will be fully global,
amazing.
which is part of the sort of trajectory of Global House too.
Well, I'm looking forward to help you one day.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes,
For
we'd love to.
sure. To be honest with you, you're absolutely amazing in networking. I only know one more person who I can say this about, and it's my son Mark. But you
This is
guys are really
very true. Mark knows
incredible in your networking, and the way you build your followers and the way you build a network and how you communicate is extremely impressive. You know, I want to just ask you about, and I'll talk about it, to network so much and to meet so many people. And you already mentioned that there is a warmth in the gala and there is a warmth in the community and with the members of the community. How true to yourself do you stay, and how authentic you are when you socialize with so many people and socializing in order to build your networks profession-wise and basically to create this community. And it's important for me personally because I sometimes struggle with a small talk or with socializing or with networking, which I'm pretty okay. No, of course, not on the same level as you or Mark, but basically, how authentic you are when you do this
Yeah.
work of networking.
This is really easy. So I think in my early career, in my early 20s, I had to fake it a lot. So you just have to talk to everyone because you're young, you've yet to prove things and so forth. I'm now at the point where I'm still profoundly ambitious and still have a lot I need to do. And I don't feel like what I've done is enough either. But I'm of the age and maturity of only choosing the people I want to work with. So I
Great.
actually never engage in small talk. I skip right through it. If I feel like I have to sort of fake something to engage with someone, I won't. I wouldn't even put myself in the room. It's a waste of my time.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's the answer.
Good
That's
for
why
you.
I only work with friends. We love everyone we do things with. We only touch things we care about. That's it. And
That's
and I know
fantastic.
that's Yeah, and I know it's a privilege, but it's also a choice. So
Yeah,
it's actually not a privilege. It's a decision. It's an
it's
active
it's a
selection.
exactly. It's a
Yeah.
conscious decision, and I've made this decision exactly what you're saying, because I proclaim as well, and this is how I am, and I think it's just so much more authentic and just real to your own self. You owe it to your own self. So
Yeah.
I'm kudos to you, Bing. Really.
Yeah, life is too short. And I know I have more enemies than I probably should because of it. I'll give you one example recently. There are several people who may seem obvious in omissions for Gold Gala, but the reason they're not invited is because they're harassers. And so there are
Right.
two in particular that I heard that people were sort of back mouthing of, did you hear this person wasn't invited, all that. And this of course always gets back to me because I hear everything. And I told them they should come straight to me and I'll tell them exactly the three
Yeah.
women they harassed last year, which is why they were not invited this year. Period.
Yeah.
And if that makes me unpopular, I am extremely, extremely comfortable with pissing the right people off, especially if
Ah,
they're bad people. And a harasser is a bad person, you know? And I kind of don't give a shit what they think. So anyway, so yeah, so it does win me enemies, but again, I think that's just part of life. And if you're making the right enemies, I think you're doing something good.
wonderful. And thank you so much. I'm so happy that I actually pointed it out and spoke to you about it. It's wonderful. And that's why, one of the main links that are common to all my fabulous guests and conversations with Olga is their philanthropic work and their authenticity in everything what they've done. And you do a lot of philanthropic work for culture and cross-continental bridges as brand director of Asia Society, the Coalition of Asian Pacifics in Entertainment, the Banff World Media Festival, and BeatCon, largest online video convention that you helped to forge in 2010. Can you share a little bit about causes that you support?
Um, I care. Oh God, I care about so many causes. I'll share the through lines. So the through lines of everything I do are one, I really care about traditionally marginalized communities and making them feel powerful.
Right.
And powerful not just in terms of being seen and representation, but real sustained economic power. So I think that's one. What are the communities that need the most help that we can sort of change how they see themselves and how the world treats them? Uh, I think the second is I care a lot about cross border, particularly between North America and Asia, because it's how I was raised and who I am. And then third, in terms of industry, I care a lot about the nexus of creativity and technology. Exhibit A, YouTube, Exhibit B, Disney, etc.
Right. I think something
Oh yay,
incredible.
Mark is coming.
Oh my God.
Finally!
I thought, why did I get stuck?
Yay!
Okay, well,
I had to
guys,
interrupt.
Wait,
that's an
what is your
unexpected guest.
Yay!
Everyone, this is Mark. That's very unusual. This is my son, Mark. The second son, Bing's brother, I should say.
I had
Hi,
to
Mark.
interrupt because I heard you talking about networking, and I thought, the best way to do it is really to make a fan account called Bing Fan Number
You
One.
did not. Is that what
And
it is? You did not.
yeah, I'm joining as Bing Fan Number One.
No,
This
I
is you've got
hate
me back on
That's
on
when, you
social media.
all like insisting, somebody like really insisting so hard. I said, okay, I should
Sean
No,
was saying he
exist
was
in
like,
white person.
I'm wondering
Yes.
what Mark's account is. No, I was hoping you'd
well,
make a real account.
this is going to be my new Instagram account. It's called Bing Fan Number One, and I'm going to
No,
rock this all over the
no,
south of France
please.
Oh
where I
my
am right now.
God.
And this
You're
is going
feeling
to be how I ascend to Bing levels of
no.
greatness. And look at you, it's 8 a.m. and you look incredible. You're in your favorite setting, a hotel
Oh
room,
my God, you know.
and I look like the 4 a.m. kebab that I ate last night.
Oh
So,
no, that's because you've been in
how
the
do you
beach all
guys do
day.
it?
You're still a can,
Yeah, I
right?
wish.
You know,
I'm still,
guys,
I'm still in Cannes.
this is my lucky night, to be honest with you, to have two of you and Mark, absolutely unexpected. Well, Bing, I have
Ugh.
to tell you, this would have not ever happened with anyone else. My son would never register himself on the Instagram just to join you. That's for
Oh,
sure.
I'm
Because
very
he doesn't
flattered.
even
I
have Instagram.
I'm very flattered.
well,
I
I
know.
wish I'd known you. And go,
So
go ahead.
anyway, yes, I mean now I think you should take over, Mark. You
No,
guys
Yeah,
I'm
Mark, you should take
I'm
should.
not
over
going
it.
to take over.
We
I'm just gonna say
we should
I
ask
wish
Mark
I'd known you.
questions.
No, I'm going to ask you some questions now. Since you've been talking about your creative writing major, I wish I'd known you in college
Mhm.
when I majored in frisbee and beer. You thank God for us creative kids. And I want to know. It's 8 a.m. for you right there now. How do you get all the energy to do all the things you do? Even the way you're talking and everything. What is the mantra that you tell yourself every day? What is like, yeah? Do you have this
Um,
post-it note in your head that you're constantly driving yourself to do all the things you
I
do?
think it's mostly biological, to be honest. Like my mom tried to have kids for a decade. My mom and dad had tried to have kids for a decade, and then I remember my mom just being so happy when I was born. So it was both bred in me in the womb, and then also the way I was treated. And I remember apparently like every day for until I was 12, the first thing I said when I woke up was "What a beautiful morning," which is like a naive, childlike way of saying, well, "Let's get this day." And so I think it's honestly mostly biological. I just do things because I do them. And then yeah, I think beyond that, I obviously have like a vision for my life and like what we need to do, and like I'm obsessed with more, and like there's all that. But honestly, I think most of it's because of my mom. How about you,
Well,
Marcus?
Oh, that's so
What
nice.
makes you want to
my
engage with so many
my
people?
my question actually, I think our moms did train it into us, you know. And I look at my mom and what she does, and the capacity just to meet and gain energy from people. I think we're probably extroverts, and that inspires us. And my other question for you before I hand it back to my mom to continue her amazing job is, how do you think our moms would get along? You know, as fellow first generation American, you know, third culture kids, what would we talk about? What would they criticize us on over lunch? And where would that lunch be?
Well, I know my mom gets along with everyone, so that's the easy answer there. I think Olga does too. Those so
I'm
weird to call
totally
you Olga.
looking for, now that you
Yeah,
said that, I'm totally looking forward to meeting your mom
yeah.
for sure.
Maybe I'll bring her to Singapore. I'll bring her to Singapore this September, then we can all hang out.
Pleasure. Please be our guest.
Okay, deal. Yeah. No, I mean, you know they would. Yeah, I don't know. They're both gregarious and all that. I think it'd be fine. I think it'd be great.
And
Well,
you're foodie, Bing. So I know, and we spoke about it. When we had this wonderful lunch in New York, just three of us, and I totally realized how particular you are with the quality you eat and with the with the food that you choose, and it's definitely very very indulging. So yeah, so we have to think carefully what are we going to choose for lunch,
Yeah,
mom's lunch.
I go both ways. I'm very easy or I'm very difficult. Or very specific, I'll say, not difficult. I either know very much what I want or I'll have anything. So there's nothing in between. Which I think is the right way to live.
what's what's your guilty pleasure though? Because I know
Oh,
that
you
you
know
love
the
your
answer to that.
Swedish candy and
You
everything.
know the answer to that.
Okay, give me
Swedish.
a favorite guilty pleasure, and whether it's food or content.
I mean, food is definitely soccer bit Swedish candy or bonbon Swedish candy. There's no question about that. And I like all the sour ones. I think
Remember that.
content, this is not a guilty pleasure, but X-Men 97 is the best superhero show ever made. It's now the highest rated Marvel property of all time. It's phenomenal. It's so dense and goes so hard with so many turns and it earns everything. I don't know. How about you?
My guilty pleasure
I
is
want to say
just
things, but we should not say things on your mom show.
Well,
my mom always
that's
tells me, yeah,
okay.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
Me,
just
me and Bing, all we do is we just late night snack. That's what we do. That's my guilty pleasure. Just late night snacking on everything, especially my weird Asian snacks and my nasi lemak and my
Oh
Malaysian
my
foods.
God, he
Oh,
loves
I love it.
Nasir. Oh my God, this is the only thing he ever talks about.
Nasi lemak is what they call me.
The
Yeah.
only thing he ever talks about.
Um,
you guys are really funny.
and what do you do when you switch off? Are you a bubble bath kind of person? Are you,
Oh my God, I wish.
apart from those things that we can't mention late at nights? But yeah, what is your solo recharge time
I'm a
look like?
sit in silence video game person. How about you?
I am a well, after the beautiful Cannes Film Festival, I'm probably going to run away to some strange place that I won't bump into anyone or have to talk to anyone. I think
Oh,
I'm going to Albania tomorrow,
ooh, sounds close.
which I've never been to, and we'll hide away for the long weekend.
That's right, because
So
you're an
yeah,
ambivert.
that's
Which already
You don't actually
gives me
recharge with
heart
everything.
palpitations, but okay,
He'll be
nothing I can
fine.
do.
He'll
I'm
be fine. He might get married to
Uh,
an Albanian girl, but who knows? He'll be fine.
I'm moving to Albania, and I'm gonna be the biggest Bing fan there
Oh my god.
until somebody
Never
takes over.
use this account. Never
Olga,
use.
you should finish with any questions you
Well,
have.
Oh yeah.
I'm a
you are,
distraction. I'm just being a
guys,
naughty son.
I'm just totally overwhelmed with both of you. In my screen in front of me that I just, you spoke about hobbies and interests, which I actually wanted to ask. And what are the upcoming projects being that you have that we can look out for and how we can support
So
you with
many.
these projects? Please spell it out.
Oh, there's so many. Uh, oh, this is gonna sound all over the place now. We're launching a platform soon, so that'll be cool for people to engage. We're scaling up both of our funds, our venture fund and our content fund. But beyond capitalization, they also include services internationally. So excited about that. There's a lot of portfolio projects and companies that have launches soon. So a lot of movie premieres that are coming out, including our latest film investment, DD, which is coming out in July, which we're really proud of by director, film writer Sean Wong, all the way to our portcos. So that's that. And then personally, theoretically, I'll finish my novel this year.
Oh my
Theoretically,
God,
hopefully.
okay. I'm doing the launch of your novel in
Oh,
Asia.
I would
Okay, I
love.
have
Yeah,
to
that'd be
launch
so
your book
fun.
here.
Yeah, that'd be so fun. I love that.
I wanna
Marcus, what do you? How about
Absolutely.
I
you?
wanna read it. I wanna read a draft.
Marcus, how about
We
you?
have
What launched
big
you?
we've begun production on our on a cross cultural uh, Asian American true crime docu
Awesome.
series.
Asian
Um,
Narcos.
it's we'll have some announcements soon on where and what that is, I believe, and we're pitching similar other things in that world of Asian narcos. Um, and I'm really all about building new tech platforms as well for people, for different communities and fans to create content together, to find new ways of disrupting, the film and entertainment industry. I mean, you're doing that too. I believe that you and I are so mission aligned in many ways, and I can't wait to see how you also, with your content fund and your VC, with AU, how you encourage new voices in this world as well. And I would love to support you in every way, as you know.
Thanks, Dad.
No, we will. We will.
Well, guys,
Sorry, I'm really
Very
bad
good.
with compliments. So I don't know how to respond.
no,
Good.
just accept it
And
because you deserve it. And, honestly, guys, I'm so proud of both of you because you definitely, from creative writing to the history of Central Asia degree and, definitely unconventional. You followed your passion and you are being true to yourself and you're being authentic. And this is, I'm talking like as a mom, and I'm really, really super proud of both of you. And, I'm going to start crying, so I better finish it up. But you are
time to
really, really
go.
amazing. And I'm looking forward to support both of you, and of course, in any ways. And Bing, I think we should stage together one time the Gold Gala here in Asia, and I'll give you the full support as you can only imagine. And looking forward to hear more about all the projects and, of course, about your book, hopefully upcoming soon. And I wish you all the very, very best. And Mark, it's really, really, you made my day as well. So I can see your face because, for me to
This
talk to
counts for
Mark,
my call for the week, right? I can
well,
now hide for
I
the
just
weekend.
wanted you took the words out of my mouth. I really doesn't
Yeah,
count,
I'm good
okay?
now.
No, no.
Thank you, brother
Don't
Bing,
even
and thank you,
say.
Mama Mark. This was,
So,
I'm so proud of you both.
so I just want to reiterate that this conversation will be posted on my IG at Events by Olga, as well as on YouTube, which I respect now even more than ever. You can watch all my previous episodes, and there are 47, including tonight's episode with Bing, and more to come. And thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening. Great day, Mark. Please safe travel. Please
No,
message
be sure
me.
to follow Bing fan number one. Bing
He'll
fan
be
number one.
fine. You'll
Well,
be
and
We're
knowing
blowing
you,
up. We're blowing up.
you probably it will be disconnected right after this conversation. But nevertheless, I know that you're being fan number
Uh,
one
I'm gonna
without
be
the
a new
Instagram. I know
influencer
that.
now.
I know that,
This is
but
my new calling.
guys, thank you so much. Being
Thank
really,
you,
really,
Mrs.
I
Fairless.
appreciate. And I'm in July in New York,
Okay, cool.
so I hope we get
Yeah,
together.
definitely. Let me know.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again.
Bye,
Bye. Have a good day.
everyone. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye.
Love you.
Love
Bye, guys.
you. Bye.